Fire and Silver, written by Wes Valor, narrated by Walrath. Chapter 3. Elsewhere in the city, Zinnia Rosefire pulled her crimson cloak tighter around her slender frame. The frayed edges fluttered in the wind, offering little defense against the biting cold that seeped into her bones. Autumn's chill hung heavy over the streets, casting a somber veil as the sun slipped beneath the horizon. With purposeful strides, she moved through the gaslit alleys of the red light district, her presence as fleeting as a ghost from the past. Leaves swirled in her wake, carried by a sharp breeze tinged with wood smoke and decay. Now, this world was hers, a realm of shadows and secrets buried in the city's underbelly, a far cry from her former life, when men across the continent admired her beauty. In her prime, Zinnia had been a vision of unmatched allure, cascading golden hair and fiery eyes that captivated all who looked her way. But she had always been more than a pretty face. Beneath that enchantment pulsed the power of dark magic, granting her the ability to shapeshift and wear the likenesses of her victims. Night Delilah had been her latest conquest, just another pawn in her intricate web of deception. Over the years, Zinnia had worn countless faces: fair maidens, withered crones, cunning rogues, noble knights. Her body was a malleable canvas, ever reshaped to suit her will. As Zinnia moved through the dimly lit streets, memories of her victims rose unbidden. She recalled the intoxicating rush of savoring their final breaths, feeling their essence slip away as their bodies withered. There was a power in it, in seizing fragile lives and draining them for her own gain. A smug smile curled her lips at the thought of those she had used and discarded. But times had changed. Virgins were a rarity now. Patience, she believed, was her greatest ally. She longed for the day she could once again feel that surge of power, watching the light fade from another's eyes as their vitality renewed her own. Passing several brothels, Zinnia glanced at the women inside, stunning figures, dancing behind large glass windows. Their long, flowing hair trailed over supple forms as they moved with practiced allure. A pang of envy twisted in her gut. She stared at them, young, beautiful, desired. And she remembered. Decades had etched wrinkles into her once smooth skin, left her frame weary beneath the folds of her tattered crimson cloak. She turned away, the sight of them a harsh reminder of what she'd lost. Men whistled and leered at the women behind the glass, oblivious to the cloaked figures slipping past. Unnoticed, a shadow of a bygone era. While navigating the crowded sidewalk, Zinnia accidentally brushed shoulders with two well-dressed elven men. They wore tailored three-piece suits, slick black hair peeking from beneath stylish fedora hats. Both wore wide grins, clearly fresh from some indulgence. Red lipstick stains marked their pale cheeks and necks as they readjusted their ties and vests. "I beg your pardon, gentlemen," Zinnia murmured, her voice tinged with a tremor. Forgiveness did not follow. Their handsome features twisted into disgust as they looked her over. "Watch where you're going, human, you repugnant hag," one of them spat. The other burst into laughter as they walked away. Zinnia grimaced, watching their backs as their laughter echoed down the dimly lit street. "Enjoy your mirth while it lasts, you pompous scoundrels. Your smug grins will soon be replaced with pleas for mercy at my feet." Zinnia seethed with quiet rage, her thoughts burning, but she dared not draw attention in the bustling district. To the elven men, she was just another unsightly human, worthy only of their scorn. Their cruel taunts cut deep, echoing the emptiness that had long taken root inside her. She yearned for the days when her beauty and youth were weapons, when every compliment and lingering glance bent others to her will. Now, as she caught her reflection in a glass window, tears welled in her wrinkled eyes. She loathed the face that stared back. "I will be beautiful again," she vowed, her resolve sharp as ever. Stepping into a nearby alley, Zinnia paused. A flicker of instinct clawed at her spine. Danger. Then, like distant thunder, she heard it. The sharp click of a gun's hammer being drawn. She spun, eyes locking on a short man in a shabby brown trench coat. He leveled a pistol squarely at her heart. "Listen here, you old bitch," the robber hissed. "Don't try anything stupid. Hand over your purse, or whatever money you've got." A wicked grin crept across Zinnia's weathered face. "You see, sir," she said, her voice trembling just enough to bait him, "I don't possess any money or coins, but I can offer you a kiss." The man's face twisted in revulsion, the idea of touching her clearly turning his stomach. "If I wanted a whore, I'd go to a brothel. I'd rather die than kiss a crone like you." "Dying is the easy part," Zinnia whispered. In the span of a heartbeat, she was behind him. The pounding of his heart echoed in her ears, his limbs frozen in fear. "How did you—" he gasped. With ruthless precision, she seized his neck and twisted, snapping it cleanly. Cackling with dark satisfaction, Zinnia's form began to shift. Her white hair darkened, her skin smoothed, and her back straightened as the crone's disguise melted into the youthful face of Knight Delilah. Sleek black braids brushed her shoulders. She drew her crimson hood tight as she stepped from the alley, the fabric rustling softly in the night breeze. Later that night, Zinnia Rosefire returned to the military barracks of the Onyx Knights. Consulting Delilah's stolen memories, she easily found the knight's room at the end of the hallway. Inside were 2 beds, but one was stripped bare. The memories told her that Delilah's roommate was away, visiting family in the Ruby Kingdom. Settling onto the soft bed, the witch gave a small grin. "That'll do," she said, bouncing lightly to test the frame. The room was all hers for now, granting her some much-needed privacy in her borrowed identity. The old bed creaked beneath her weight, a far cry from the luxury she had once known, back when her mother, Zabel Rosefire, the Dark Dragon, ruled Eden. But then, Zinnia had been a princess, hailed as the most beautiful woman in the world. Now, these modest knight's quarters were all she had, but they served their purpose. Delilah's space was neat and orderly, the floor swept to perfection, every detail reflecting discipline and restraint. As Zinnia surveyed the room, she couldn't ignore the signs of Delilah's affection for Prince Malcolm. Sketches of him adorned the walls. Rising from the bed, she moved to the desk and opened a drawer, revealing even more intimate portraits. The prince, shirtless, his sculpted form rendered in careful detail. Even to Zinnia, who worshipped beauty above all, he was a masterpiece. Delilah had captured his strong jawline and sculpted build with striking precision. Every pencil stroke radiated pure adoration. Zinnia traced a finger over the sketches, amusement curling her lips. She felt what the knight had felt: warmth, passion, and danger. For Delilah, danger had been a turn-on. She knew a secret relationship with Prince Malcolm could spell trouble with the Queen, but she didn't care. When no one else was around but Malcolm, Delilah's composed exterior gave way to something bolder, something wild. Now, oceans of her memories and desires belonged to Zinnia, waiting to be explored. Zinnia smirked at the recent visions, Delilah's final moments seen through her own eyes just before death. She saw herself, blade in hand, attacking the knight with her emerald sword. Wrong place, Wrong time, wrong kingdom. I pity those who think they can challenge me one-on-one. With a final glance, she closed the drawer, committing his illustration to memory. At least she had talent. I suppose I can't blame her. He was gorgeous, Zinnia mused. She crossed the room to the bookshelf, noting how meticulously the books were arranged. Alphabetical, of course. This girl's a bit too fastidious, she thought, shaking her head. Running her fingers along the spines, she selected a history textbook. No harm in a quick read before I start the séance. She flipped to the section on the dark dragon, her mother, and began to read aloud, her voice edged with bitter amusement. During her reign, the sorceress Zabel Rosefire ruled through terror and bloodshed. Historians widely regarded her as a symbol of tyranny. Her name became synonymous with suffering. Under her regime, the elves of all 4 kingdoms were enslaved and subjected to centuries of forced servitude. The scars of her cruelty still mark the land today. Her eyes dropped to the far shorter paragraph beneath it. Her tone soured. Zinnia Rosefire, daughter of the Dark Dragon, is believed to have fled the Onyx Kingdom shortly before the final battle, leaving her mother to confront the wizard Azrael without aid. Rage flickered behind her eyes. With a sudden snap, she hurled the book against the wall. Lies! She shouted. Those ignorant elves don't know a damn thing. They get to rewrite history just because they won. He got to me first. I couldn't help her. She stood in silence for a moment, then exhaled. It was time to begin the séance. In the center of the room, Zinnia had sketched a circle adorned with a 5-pointed star using white chalk. 5 candles were placed at each point. As she raised her hands, magic surged through her, and the wicks burst into flame. Completely nude after shedding her uniform, Zinnia knelt within the circle, just large enough to contain her. The bare wooden floor pressed against her knees, and the air inside the room felt heavier, charged with something ancient and watching. She inhaled deeply, the scent of burning wax and chalk dust mingling in her lungs. Nothing but silence. Then, Zabel Rosefire, the Dark Dragon, she declared. I summon thee. A sudden gust swept through the quarters, echoing like a demonic howl. The flames flickered, shifting from orange to an ominous black. Zinnia's eyes fluttered as her mother's voice echoed in her mind. What guidance do you have from the shadows, Mother? She asked. I have learned more about the Trinity Mage, my loyal daughter, Zabel rasped. She must meet a tragic end for our plans to succeed. Zinnia nodded, calm on the outside, though her mind raced. At last, a chance to prove herself to her mother, a chance to free her from Nevea, the underworld, a prison for wicked souls. The Trinity Mage, Aaliyah Goodwick. She is my vessel, Zabel hissed. The only body strong enough to contain what I am. But listen well, daughter. She must die untouched by guilt, her hands clean, her heart unblemished. Not by your blade. She must die innocent. Only then will the resurrection bind her body to my spirit. How do I make that happen? Zinnia asked, her tone edged with doubt. Tarnish her reputation. Make her seem dangerous, deranged in the eyes of the elves. Only then will her death appear justified to her killers. I see, Zinnia said. I'll sow seeds of mistrust, turn the city against her. In time, they'll celebrate her demise. Although she didn't know Aaliyah personally, the thought of orchestrating an innocent girl's downfall stirred something wicked in Zinnia's blood. She grinned with delight. Zabel's tone sharpened, her eyes flashing. Take care not to expose your own secrets, my daughter. Our plans must not be jeopardized. I assure you, I will act with utmost discretion, Zinnia replied calmly. Soon enough, the gates of Nevaeh will open for you, Mother. This I vow. Zabel's voice faded, but her parting words lingered. Do not fail me. As her presence vanished, the black flames of the ritual candles flickered once, then snuffed out in unison, plunging the room into silence and shadow. As dawn neared, deep in the Raven Forest, cold wind rustled the swaying trees around a small encampment of a dozen tents. Twilight filtered through the canvas walls. Inside the largest tent, Cain knelt in silence. His long, whitish-blonde hair fell like a veil, obscuring his face as it pressed to the floor. Before him stood a wooden dragon shrine, a hybrid carved with the face of a beautiful woman and the scaled body of a dragon. His goddess, Zabel Rosefire, the dark dragon. Footsteps approached. "It's time, sir," came the muffled voice of his lieutenant. "Dawn awakens." Cain rose, his sky-blue eyes glowing with purpose. His skin was unearthly white, like milk. The tent's furnishings reflected his sacred calling. An altar draped in crimson cloth, candles burned to the nub, and an array of blades and firearms meticulously arranged. "Excellent," Cain said, sweeping his pale mane back. "Blood must be shed." He adjusted the crimson fatigues worn by him and his followers, a bold declaration of loyalty to the dark dragon. Today's offerings would please Zabel greatly. Stepping into the hazy morning light, Cain inhaled the crisp autumn air, rich with the scent of maple and pine. Nearby, 10 elven sacrifices stood waiting, unaware of their impending fate. But Cain would soon change that. Leaves crunched beneath his black boots as he surveyed the forest camp. His loyal human soldiers stood at attention, their expressions stoic beneath their caps. The elves had been brought here hours ago, while stars still glimmered in the night sky. Now, with dawn creeping in, their final moments approached. Cain handed an oil lantern to his lieutenant and gave a silent nod. The soldier bowed and moved toward the place of offering. Anticipation coiled within Cain. Let the elves weep and plead. The time had come to serve his goddess queen. Dawn's light filtered through the yellow and rust-colored leaves as Cain inspected the row of elven captives kneeling at the forest campsite. 5 women, 5 men. Not fighters or soldiers, just ordinary folk ripped from their homes. Perfect sacrifices. Their weeping and desperate pleas meant nothing to him. A young elf girl sobbed, begging for mercy, tangled auburn hair hiding her face. An elderly elf strained against his bonds, voice trembling as he tried to bargain for his life. Their cries annoyed Cain, yet pleased him too. Proof of their weakness and his strength. Draped in crimson fatigues, Cain stood tall, a human soldier wholly devoted to Zabel. He brushed his long, whitish-blonde hair, relishing the power he held over these trembling insects. "For the dark dragon," he declared, voice cold and commanding. "The true queen of Eden." The captives fell silent, heads bowed, resigned to fate. Cain's loyal followers, also clad in crimson, stood at the ready, black pistols gripped tight in their hands. Long silencers were screwed to each barrel, muffling the shots to avoid attention in the quiet woods. Their eyes, shadowed beneath their caps, stayed locked on the kneeling elves. At Cain's signal, the soldiers raised their pistols in unison. The elves bowed their heads, faces slick with tears. Muffled shots rang out, barely louder than cracking twigs. Crimson blossomed on the captives' chests as they crumpled lifeless to the earth. Wisps of bluish smoke curled from the pistol's silencers as Cain's followers lowered their weapons, hands steady, eyes cold. Cain stood over the bodies in silence, letting the moment sink in. The sacrifice had been made. The earth drank their blood. It pleased him. No, it pleased her. This was the beginning, a cleansing. He stepped forward, dagger in hand. With methodical precision, he grasped the pointed ears of each elf and sliced them off, collecting the trophies one by one. The pale cartilage clicked softly as he threaded them onto a wire, a garland of devotion. His breath came slow and measured, eyes glowing with purpose. They said we were savages, that we were beneath them. But now, look who kneels in the dirt, who bleeds for a higher cause. He turned to his followers, their crimson fatigues sharp against the muted tones of the forest. Let's pray, Cain said, his voice low and reverent. Bow your heads. The soldiers obeyed. O mighty dark dragon, Zabel Rosefire, devourer of the elven blight, we offer these lives to you not in sorrow, but in triumph. Accept their blood as the first of many. With each soul claimed, may your strength grow. With every scream silenced, may your return draw nearer. Make this world anew in fire and ash, and let your enemies perish screaming. He raised his dagger, still wet with blood, and closed his eyes. Let her will be done. Yet much work remained to prepare for his goddess's return, but Cain was confident her enemies would soon tremble. With a sickening smile, Cain draped the ear necklace over his red fatigues, the pale trophies stark against the crimson fabric. Around him, the leaves rustled, as if the spirit of Zabel was pleased by the offering. Slowly, the sounds of the forest returned in the wake of slaughter. He turned his gaze to the row of bodies sprawled before him, children, elders, all with bullet holes in the backs of their heads. Cain smiled. He spun to his soldiers. Go and rest, brothers and sisters, he said solemnly. Zabel Rosefire will return. But first, dispose of the bodies. Feed them to the Sonjas. Every creature must eat. The elves had their time, Cain thought. Ours begins now.